Meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Ron Kinsley,
Here.
John Righeimer.
Here.
Stacy Hessel. Here. Tom Duffy. Dale Schleter.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Let the record indicate we have a quorum. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
And you have to do. Very much. Oh.
4, certification compliance with open meeting laws.
Oh, I'm sorry. This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Number 5 is the agenda. The agenda is set. Number 6, public comment. Anybody have anything for public comment?
No hands are up.
Thank you. Number 7, approve the minutes of the previous meeting of January 12th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Righeimer, second by Ms. Hessel to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8, welcome to the Sawyer County Finance meeting, Ms. Jadine.
Thank you. I'm going to start with just a quick department update before we go into the agenda items that are listed here. So spring publication notices went out to delinquent taxpayers the second week of January. So we're getting some payments in, not as quickly, of course, as it's anticipated. The $70 tax deed fee has been added to the 18 delinquent taxes, and the $10 ad fee has been added to the 2020 delinquent taxes.
Jadine, can I interrupt you just a minute? You gotta pull the mic down by you. Thank you.
That better?
Thank you.
Sure. And so the $10 ad fee will be added to the 2020 delinquent taxes, and that will be published in the newspapers the next 2 weeks. Okay. The January settlement, of course, is complete. So now it's on to the February settlement. Once the February settlement is completed, taxpayers can then pay their delinquent and second installment payment online with a credit card if they so choose. 2022 delinquent notices then will be mailed the end of February, beginning of March. So we can move on to the agenda items here. I'm going to take these out of order slightly, starting with B. Reason for that is because that list, Lynn, are you able to put that up on the screen? So this is a list that was published in the newspapers and is also published online. These parcels are currently available for over-the-counter sales. So general public can come in and purchase these remaining parcels. These are in rem properties from 2015 and prior. And this is the remaining inventory, if you will. And then Lynn, if I can have you go to letter A. I've provided a handout at the desk, and basically, well, you know what, I'm gonna take a step back before we do that. So that first list that Lynn had up, those properties are going to go on the Wisconsin surplus auction. I did include a little bit of information in the handout that you can review regarding the auction. I'd be happy to go over those unless you want to just read that on your own.
Move forward, please.
Okay. So those ones are going to go on the auction, I would say in the next month or two. So Lynn, I guess I will have you go back now. I apologize to the next listing.
Jadine, can I ask a question, please? When it goes to auction, is it a for sure sale or how does that work, please?
No, not necessarily. So, according to what I have documented here, whether the property receives a bid or not, Sawyer County does not get charged for that. So we could have items that go out there and don't get bids. We could have items that go out there and don't receive the minimum that the county has agreed to sell that parcel for, but the county has the option to determine whether or not they want to approve or decline that bid. So the auction site has recommended that the listings are put out there with a starting bid of 0 and perhaps put a reserve on those items. And then after the auction, so the auction generally runs about 3 or 4 weeks. After that auction, we'll time it with a meeting so that that can be approved by the board before. So if it doesn't meet, so if we don't get a bid, obviously, or if we get a bid that's lower than what's been approved, the county has the opportunity to decide what they want to do with that.
Yes,
Jim, thanks. Janine, so you have all these like pages 1 through 4
Yes,
that are all in RAM, right? Certain divided by year,
yes,
correct?
correct.
And is the fair market value, the estimated fair market value, is that kind of the minimum bid then? Or are those two separate numbers?
So switching over to, if you look at the 2017 and 2016, so that 2015 basically is a summary of the first document that's currently published online. The reason that 2015 is included in these other 4 documents is because Jay and I got together and he put aside some notes and some recommendations regarding the property on the ones that we currently have listed, in addition to the ones that will eventually go out on the auction site as well. So the current amount listed on those sheets that you're looking at is the estimated fair market value of the property. And yesterday at the meeting, it was agreed those values were the amounts that were approved. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay,
yeah, land, water.
correct, correct. And then we can go on to the third item. Unless you have any questions regarding any of the other ones listed on that 2016, 2017 list.
Go ahead, please.
So this third item, there was a request on one of the parcels that we have that was taken back. Again, this was at 2015 and prior. And this parcel is in the village of Radisson. This is an estimate to demo the building. I have not been to the site. Currently, we have this listed at 10.5, and then yesterday there was a motion to reduce the minimum of this to $1. So that dollar amount of 10,005 has changed. There are some concerns with that property. We did look at even seeing if one of the local fire departments could do a burn, but it's too close to other commercial properties and there's too much other expenses involved with removing shingles and to even have that as an option, thinking it might be a little less spendy than it is for the demo.
It says,
Was this the only bid that came in? Was there other people given the opportunity to
I
bid?
believe that's the only one that Tim received. I think that was the only one that was submitted as
it
well.
was asked to get other bids and other people didn't respond, but then this finally came in.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Schuman.
Sorry, Jeremy. Janine, is there a liability with this building that's sitting on that lot?
Obviously, there would be a liability if, something, my understanding from what I've been told is some of the windows are out. But it's sat there, and that's the hard thing with these properties is Sawyer County takes them back and we have them for, Sawyer County doesn't take them back until 5 years. Statutorily, we could take them back in 3 years. regardless if it's 5 years or 3 years, when the building sits vacant, you're gonna have issues. So yes, that becomes, but then it becomes a greater expense to Sawyer County as well.
What is the responsibility of Radisson? Is there any, or because we have it, there's no responsibility?
Sawyer
for
County
us?
owns the
Okay.
property. Mhm.
So presently, there's only one bid, which is extremely high compared to what normal bids are. I was explained that the reason the bid is so high is because there's a basement there and they'd have to fill a hole back in with sand. I'd still like to get another bid, see if, I mean. That's a high bid, and if the second bid came in high, well, then I guess we could accept one of them. I think Tim from maintenance handles that part of it, doesn't he?
He does. He does.
Yes,
You're talking demo bids.
yes.
Yeah, because this doesn't include the sand. Oh, yes.
It doesn't
Fill.
put it on there.
Got
Yeah,
it.
the fill is on that one.
Got it.
But there's a lot of people in the village around us complaining about it also. Let them complain until we get it down, I guess. Unless someone buys it in the meantime.
And that's a possibility too, yes.
I
But
know-
we don't, and of course, you don't know the outcome until you put it out on the auction site too. Somebody may purchase it and they may not.
I know one of the landowners has asked about it,
Yeah.
a landowner next to him, but they don't want the expense of tearing the building down.
Right. Right.
So. What's the thoughts of the committee?
I agree with you on needing another bid. Just seems really, really high.
Yes,
If we demo the property, the structures, that would make it more attractive and more valuable, wouldn't it?
yes.
Maybe even enough to get them our money back.
I don't know that you're gonna get that amount of money.
Yeah.
In,
No, but it potentially would move it forward so it get back on. Someone purchase it, we could collect tax
the
money.
tax roll,
Eventually.
right, right. Well, and it's interesting, if you take a look at the spreadsheet that I had given you, you can see for those 2016, 2017 in-run properties, you know, there's a column in there that shows over a 5-year period what Sawyer County would collect in taxes. And I know a lot of times there's a rush to get that property back out there. But you're not always collecting a lot in taxes. It's going to take a long period of time to recoup dollars like this.
Janine, what are the delinquent taxes on this property?
This one actually, because it's written off, that was an
But
older
I mean,
one,
what was owed to us?
and I don't have that in front of me.
Oh.
Yeah,
5,000, 10,000?
I don't even want to give I can get you that information, Tweed. Any
So-
other questions?
So we should go back to Tim and ask him to see if he can get a second bid. Or what's the thoughts? The value of the now has been reduced.
The
down to
value
$1.
is now $1. That is correct. That is correct. Now, once, obviously, there would still be time to get bids because I don't foresee this going to the auction the next week or two. Once properties are live on the auction, there's nothing that we can do with them at Sawyer County.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out.
Mhm.
Yes,
Do we know why there was only one bid or why others didn't bid on it?
I don't know that. Ron,
I
do
was
you-
instructed that people just didn't bid. We contacted
Contract.
other contractors and they just didn't bid on it.
So do we think it'll be different this time?
I think because of the time of year, they were busy like last fall, didn't want to respond. Now we hit winter, no one wants to respond, but maybe if we can get a bid coming spring, perhaps they will. What's the worst case scenario? We end up with what we got presently.
I know, right?
Yes, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, just working in the office and stuff, I mean, everybody's extremely busy. All the builders and contractors are already out through 2024. So I don't know how much interest you're gonna get.
But I want to try at least.
Well, it'd be nice to know his process too, like if there's a lot of new excavating companies that have come out. And if he's just using old reference points or if he's using the new.
He's using locals. Tim was. In that area. All right, we'll see if Tim gives us the price.
Chairman,
Yes.
yeah, one, do some demo contractors just do the demo for what's salvageable lumber that's there or something? Is that ever considered? They still do that anymore or?
No.
Not really?
I
The
guess
cost of recycling is really high.
the majority of the time when we come into demo, we bring a backhoe in and dump it in dumpsters and all the way.
Yeah.
And that cost normally in a building, I asked Tim about it, between $8,000 and $10,000, which makes this one extremely high.
Yeah.
And that's what I was told, because there's a basement, they gotta fill in the basement. And they also know no one else is bidding.
They should know, no one else is.
Not too hard to find out.
Small county.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can you tell me the total price of that bid? I can't read it.
47.
47,000.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, you had a motion yesterday in land water to put it on the market for $1.
Okay.
So is that, you go through with that then, or?
That is correct. So I will update the information on the website. And maybe we'll get some.
At the same time, we're gonna work to get another bid and
Mhm.
see.
Oh,
what
before it
shakes
goes
out.
to auction, gotcha.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I can change it on the website because nothing is live with the auction. Once it goes with the auction, I can't touch.
How long is it on the auction there? So if it goes for a certain time, then can we have movement after?
The auction, they recommend that you list the parcels for 3 to 4 weeks. And I think that is, that makes sense because people, so obviously some buy sight unseen, but the ones that do want to come and take a look, that gives them the time to. I was looking at some from other counties. You can go out and look at various county listed on Wisconsin surplus auction and you'll see for the ones, I can't remember what county has an active listing right now. But because of that time frame, there's very little activity. All the activity comes at last day, last hour, minutes. Mhm.
Other things for GD. GD, thank you for educating us.
Mhm.
We'll move forward. Number 9. Native American Property Taxation Treaty in the 1854 update is back in a Supreme Court decision. Different things.
So this is something we're just finding out more and more. Just sat in on a meeting with some legislators on Monday, I believe, to kind of see what the impact is. We don't really know all of the properties that are involved. Right now, our best guess is we have 2 townships. I think, Dan, maybe we do have more than that have properties that would affect the bottom line here. I know very little about it. My assumption is that it's and fill in the blanks if you guys know, it's what had been tribal land purchased and now it's been repurchased by a member, right, is what I think. So then it comes off of the tax roll. It affects some other counties a lot. That's not affecting us as much right now. If you look at the spreadsheet I put together, I'll kind of go through column by column what it is. The first one obviously is the municipality, so township, cities, villages. Then I put down the 22 equalized value and our grand total of 4.5 trillion. And that's why this doesn't have a great impact on us is Sawyer County is very property rich and kind of sparse in population too. And then the next column is the tax apportionment for this year, and that comes up with our levy rate of $3.09. Well, when I look at this reservation tax, I'm assuming that's the tax on the full amount, not just Sawyer County. So what I'm doing is imputing a total mill rate of $13. I know the school is about $6. The other ones are gonna vary by township or city, and then technical college would be in there as well. So then what I did is I divided that out. The tax that we're assuming is affected to get an equalized value attributed to that. So then I subtracted that from the equalized value to come up with an adjusted equalized value. And you can see it's got about an $8 million effect, so it's not huge on 4.5 trillion at this point. There could be more that are added as we dig into it further. So then what I did is I redid the tax apportionment, and the county rate, here's what I think will happen moving forward. And really, if we have to do this retroactive to this year, I don't know how we'll handle that, but moving forward, now we know. The reason we couldn't do anything going back is this was decided in late November, communicated out late November, early December. Well, I had to have the tax apportionment in on November 15th, so it was after the fact. But the effect would be the county rate would go from 3.0918 to 3.0975. So that's 57 cents on $100,000. So it's really got minimal impact. And I don't think this last column will apply at all. If it had to be done this to those two counties, the mill rate for Bass Lake would go to 3.13. Town of Hayward would go to 3.10. So even those would be very minimal if it was just in those two municipalities. That's because those are our two largest in Sawyer County. So they have a lot of value just in and of themselves. So bottom line is we don't know a lot, but if I calculate making assumptions that I'm making based on what I'm hearing, are the tax implications would be very minimal for us. It's huge in Ashland County. They've got a lot of money involved. We do not have as much.
How come it just affects them two townships? Did the assessor not assess that?
Well, I think it's got to be on tribal property. So not every township has tribal property.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's only two townships that are affected now. There should have been three more. Or there's three more form over tribal property in them. The one assessor that takes care of those, there was in 2007, right around there. There was two federal court cases, one in Oregon and one in Michigan, that said that the tribal properties couldn't be taxed. And at that time, that assessor says, well, sooner or later, this is going to happen in Wisconsin. So since that time, he exempted all those tribal owned properties in those other townships. There's two that weren't, and that's where we're coming with this now. So the other ones have been exempt for 15 years already.
Check.
Yes.
The other county, Ashland, I think it's going out towards Minocqua too. There's some big issues out there. I mean, I can assume there's just bigger reservation land there. I mean, how are we at risk of that ever happening? I mean, because it seems to be very difficult in those other areas, and what makes them different than us? Things I'm, they just don't.
I really can't speak to those counties, but again, my assumption is that it's tribal property that have been purchased from someone out of the tribe and now it's been repurchased by a tribal member.
But
So
massive
it has to be
land, massive property
Yeah.
acquisition
High value.
in those other areas.
Yeah.
Right.
Like with Lac de Flambeau, a lot of their
Right.
tribal members sold their land to non-tribal people. And big tracts of land, like you mentioned.
Right.
So those are the properties. And then if they fell back into tribal ownership, then it was from now on exempt.
So big
So those-
tracks flipping back and forth, right?
Correct. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and he's right. The three townships did exempt several years ago. And Town of Hayward and Bass Lake are just now finding out who is exempt. And I think there was a motion within that action that they couldn't go retro. I think that's part of it too. And you start from here going forward. So I think you're correct, Mike.
Yeah.
Are them other counties going to the state and trying to be made whole?
Yeah, and Andy, I think Andy's on. Andy talked to me about the state was gonna try to compensate some counties for this happening. Any comment on that, Andy?
Yeah, the attached to the agenda is a memo from Ashland Bayfield counties. I've been in communication with them, and I attached this because a couple weeks ago they asked if Rusk and Vilas County wanted to be included in their discussions, and that Vilas County would be the Minocqua issues, because they were communicating with Wisconsin County Association, who is helping them talk to the legislators about essentially filling in the holes that the loss of tax revenue is going to create for their jurisdictions. And so Ashland and Bayfield, they have some more notable issues because a couple of their towns have a very high concentration of tribal land that makes up the township. So they were a little more prepared, I think, their communications between the county and the tribes in those areas. So they already made these, they already removed these properties from the tax roll before tax bills went out last year. And what happened was, if you have a high concentration of tribal owned land that was taxable and now is going to be exempt, the equalized value for those townships did not change. So the tax burden for those towns flipped from being on all the property owners to just the non-native property owners. That's why you had like a shift of 85% of the taxable value shift to the private property owners, which obviously creates some concern. So I don't know why they were, I think maybe they've been in the discussions a little longer. They knew the properties in question, so they made those changes. The other thing that I think happened in a couple of those townships is that the tribal property owners, since the court case had started, had not been paying their taxes. So those properties were tax delinquent. And with the court case being settled, the county cannot collect those back taxes, or delinquent taxes anymore. So they've made those other townships or taxing jurisdictions whole. So the county is out that money essentially. So that's why they've gone to the legislature, or making a request to the legislature to fill in the holes, not just for the current loss of value, but for also the past loss of value, and then going ahead for another year as well. So that's why their dollar amount is significantly higher. So we put in Mike's spreadsheet. We have a preliminary list from the town of Hayward. It's not a final list. That gave us a little bit of an idea of how many properties were in question there. And I think in the town of Hayward, it's in the mid 20 parcels. And then we're waiting to see the town of Bass Lakes, but we've at least heard that it's maybe about 80 parcels. So that's why we've put a couple of placeholders in place that's shown in Mike's spreadsheet, to have the conversation with the legislature and what the impact will be in Sawyer County.
That's right.
Andy, or it sounds like it's in other areas, not here, but like to say in those areas that have a big issue with this, I mean, is it so concentrated of the non-taxable property that, and I guess a lack of a term, in theory, less services are given to those areas? So, I mean, you're collecting less tax, but I mean, if like a whole block in my example is tax exempt, I mean, what, are they still getting services?
Yeah, they're still getting county services. But that's been part of the discussion up in Ashland and Bayfield, is like, if there's that much of a township that is tribal property now, should they make some type of change in how the township is, essentially even the existence of that town as a township? Should it be attached to somebody else, or? But we don't have that issue here.
Well, that's where
There's still,
state comes
yeah.
in, right?
What's that?
Is that where the state comes in, that they would compensate?
Yeah, that's where they're talking to the state about that.
Okay.
Here, our LCO reservation is fairly well spread out amongst is it six townships or eight? I think it's actually 8 townships have a little piece of the reservation where it's not dominated by, um, the reservation doesn't dominate the overall parcels in a township.
Thank you.
Any other questions, for Randy? Or Mike?
I guess there's one thing I wanted to ask is, in the interim of this conversation, it's been weekly meetings here for a couple weeks. I have gone ahead and kept our name in with Ashland, Bayfield, and Vilas. And right now where we're at is needing to firm up our number as to the number of parcels. So the town of Bass Lake, town of Hayward are communicating with LCO about which parcels are we exactly talking about. But once we have that, we would keep the conversation going with those other counties, with the state, to try to fill in any hole that even if it is smaller than those other counties within our budget, if at all possible. I guess I want to give you that update. That's where we're at. And if you want me to keep going with that conversation, we will.
Absolutely.
But I think Dan mentioned at yesterday's meeting, we have some difficulties. Dan has mentioned that we don't have a good map of the reservation, because part of the court settlement is that this only affects properties that were tribally owned, then non-tribal owned, and are now back in the hands of tribal ownership or a member of the tribe within the reservation boundaries. So one of the keys is to determine which of these properties is within that boundary.
Are you able to get updated maps or?
I mean, we've got several maps. We don't know, maybe Tweed knows more, what the official map is. We've got maps from the BIA. Maps that were included in with that court decision were just more of a general map without, you couldn't even see the specific area, you know, it was on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. So we would really hope out of this whole thing, we get a definite reservation boundary. So, you know, and it changes over time too, but we would like to know right now exactly what those reservation boundaries are. And we've got a pretty good idea, but nobody's given us an official map.
And within our conservation department, Brian Bissonette, who heads that up, he has the maps, so he will share those with.
Yeah, I think,
someone.
yeah, so, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's in regards to the 1854 treaty and that boundary that was established there.
Yeah,
Correct.
and it's been changed since too.
Yep.
You know, amended, so I don't know for sure if we have maps of. Yeah, the last map we got from the BIA was a few years ago when they added some properties, but we don't know if for sure that's the final one or not.
Thank you, Dan. All right, Andy, keep working on that. Keep us posted. Anybody else have any questions regarding that? Thank you. Number 10, Finance Department, sales tax.
Yeah, so there's a couple graphs on there. They're showing. Basically, we're 1 month in, so it's hard to really tell anything. It is the highest we've had in the last 5 years. When I started last July, I knew this was a big issue for the county, so I created a spreadsheet to kind of take the information we have and project forward throughout the year. And so what it does is it takes the prior 4 years for each month, it's an average, and then each month I accumulate all of the months together. So it's an average of 4 months, and then I take the current month for the previous 4 years, get a percentage of the average for each year, and then get an average of those averages, and I multiply that to come up with a projected figure for each month going forward. And last year it worked really well. I came within $6,500 of 2.85 million. So I, you know, for 1 year it worked. We'll see. Right now it looks like we're going to be down, but last February was, you know, a standing year for whatever reason. $220,000 in February, which was 130% of the previous average. So I think once we get through that into March, then I'll have a better projection going forward of where we're going to land. We budgeted 2.6 million. I would think with hitting 2.58 2.85 this year, we hit that, but I'll keep the board or the committee updated on that. Any questions?
Thank you for doing that.
For budget updates. I don't have a lot of new information from last month. We're pretty well closed up with the general fund, Fund 100. There are obviously two big ones that are outstanding that are going to affect the general fund, both HHS and highway. Depending on where those come in, there may be a transfer from the general fund. But right now, and we've seen these before, you just want to go down to those smaller ones that kind of show the totals. A little more. One more. One more. So that is the one that shows really where we're at bottom line. So I've got the revenue and expenses versus the budget, but then I also do a couple calculations. In the 22 budget, there was a planned spending of fund balance of almost 1.3 million. And I'm hoping we don't dip into that. So what I'm always doing is netting that out. So on the revenue side, if I net that out, we're at 105%. There's also that LACTF money, which was unexpected. And we're not just dumping that in the general fund at this time. So if I back that out, we're at about 103% on the revenue side, which is good, which means even without those two things, we hit the revenues. And then on the expense side, if I net out that transfer to the special funds, which basically that general fund balance spend was going right to the special funds, HHF, and even further than that for placements. So if I back that out, we're at just under 98%. So on Fund 100, we're looking really good. Again, I don't know what the transfers might be, but we're in good shape. So if we move over to HHS, they've done well on the revenue side as well. So if I take that planned transfer out of the equation, they're at almost 105% of revenues on what they have budgeted. So that's good news. And then on the expense side, they're at 86%. And I do have to qualify that because I know we have not been billed a lot of those placements yet. There's about 500,000 outstanding. So that'll obviously make a difference there, but we're still going to be in good shape and I'm predicting a very minimal transfer if we have one at all. And then highway department.
Mike,
Yep, go ahead.
where does the revenue come from for health and human services? Build services?
Well, there's a tax levy, build services, and a lot of grant money.
Yeah.
So they have a wide range of revenue, a lot of grants.
Yeah.
And then highway department at this point, and we haven't closed out highway yet, we'll do that in March. They're already over budget on revenues and still just a little under on the expense side. So right now, we're looking to be in very good shape.
Questions, concerns? Thank you, Mike. Let's see, capital improvement plan.
I don't really have an update on that. Purchasing's been slow. It's hard to get, especially the bigger equipment, especially vehicles. So we haven't made any significant purchases since last month.
Okay.
I know we do have some technology ones that are in the works. So I'll have more of an update next month.
So are you also tracking in that? I know the capital improvements for like these cameras and stuff that we're gonna need for the court system.
Well, we can talk about that as an option here when we get to that special meeting. It definitely could be done through there, or we could move some money around from. Like, for instance, the county's already approved a $2 million debt issue for the completion of the project,
Right.
but then we dedicated ARPA money to that. We could do some shifting around there to make all of the work if we needed to.
Letter D, attorney fees, expenses update.
Yeah, I was asked to compile a list of what we spend on attorney's fees by department. Randy helped me with this. She did a lot of the legwork. It's not as easy as you would think. We have attorney's fees in general government, which is that sub fund 33. We have a separate legal fee account. The other ones, a lot of the departments just run it through contracted services. So we had to do Randy did some digging to actually come up with this. Because of that, I don't have comparisons for prior years. Just because that would take an equal amount of digging, and we'll do it if you request it. I just didn't ask her to do it at this point. So the bottom line was 193,000. Most of that 155 goes to general government. We do break out specific things to other departments where it was directly related to them. And some of them we get 50 or 100% grant money match back on that expenditure as well.
I guess some departments, an example, highway department, if they go out and do some stuff, they need legal help. They ask for permission to do that through Andy or somebody. Do these other departments do that? As in, I suppose, human resources, that'd be Rose, maybe Andy. Treasurer, they use TJ Duffy. Would that be for legal descriptions or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
That could be just about anything. We've had
Just give us some examples.
interim. For instance, we had a parcel that the county took back. Another family member came and wanted to purchase that property back, pay the back taxes in full. And so then we had to contact them. So basically any land sale we go through Duffy's
Okay,
to complete the deed.
thank you.
To answer your question, I don't know if, well, Andy can speak. He would
Go ahead,
know.
Andy.
Yes, to answer your question, in general, yes. Either I'm knowledgeable or okaying the use of the corp counsel, or there are a few situations where there's already relationships in place. So like for guardianships or commitments in human services, they work with TJ. They don't come to me with each one of those. They just work with him on an ongoing basis as they have those issues come up. Board of Adjustment, TJ represents them. So he just handles those cases as they come forward. They don't come to me asking for the permission. If there's already like and child support uses Mark Kelsey for their cases, that just occurs. They don't come to me with approval for each one of those needs. But generally anything Von Briest and Atolis, we're aware of, or it's coming through the administrative office.
Okay. How about zoning? Does they have a attorney at all the hearings?
Andy Phillips.
Atolis is representing us there.
Any other
And
questions?
as of right now, the Atolis zoning is being charged through general.
Zoning's what, please?
Charged to general.
Thank you. Mr. Schuman.
Mr. Marker, what did we budget for 2023 legal fees? This amount?
Let me look. It's probably not gonna be, and again, the department ones are within their own budget. They're not within the Fund 33, but what I can look up is the Fund 33.
That's okay. So we're somewhere in the ballpark, huh?
Yeah. We budgeted 145 and spent about, well, what was it, 160 or so? 155. 150.
Yes,
Does on the stuff on the back, there's different color ink and it correlate to the front,
It does. That was just some timing stuff. The bills that came over year end.
but the total is the one in the front.
The front total. is what we're looking at.
Thank you.
yes,
There's probably legal fees with our union negotiations with the sheriff's department too, correct?
yeah, there'll be,
There will
if we ever meet again.
Yeah.
But that occurs every other or every third year, depending on the contract.
Right.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions regarding that? Move forward, number 11, investment review and update.
So I'm giving you an update on our balances. One thing we actually ran into, because this is a early meeting for finance, we don't have all the bank statements yet. So one thing I would wonder is if we want to continue to go with this and potentially not have up to date or be a month behind on these updates. So I'll leave that up to the committee to give me a recommendation on that. So there are two, and one of them, of course, is the big one.
So we have the tree number.
The LGIP is one that we didn't have a statement for yet.
Yeah, that generally doesn't come in until I would say 8 days after the first of the month.
Which is why we're getting a paper copy. I was waiting as late as I could, but it still didn't get here. So that not only affects what our actual balance is, it affects the interest we've earned in January by a lot, because that's our legal senator.
Thank you.
So we're, a little bit ahead of last month, assuming that LGIP is the same, which we haven't done.
We haven't transferred anything.
So that should be the same, other than the interest there.
Interest.
So the interest, like I said, is gonna be understated for January, and it, still is pretty good even with that. Next month will be another early one, so what would the committee like to see?
How much difference is it gonna make if we have true numbers a month behind? Or if we stand where we're at?
It's gonna make a lot of difference on the interest side, because LGIP is our main interest earner, and that we're likely not gonna have that information for the committee meetings updated.
So if we're a month behind, I would say that would be all right.
Mhm.
All right,
We don't do anything with that interest.
Right.
all right, so that takes care of that. Then looking at the spreadsheet. If you recall, last month you asked me to take a look at a year and make recommendations based on that. So I did. I took the balances for each month last year and then came up with an average. The average is just over 19 million for 2022. And you can see the breakdown of where the money was. And the big change came in July when we got the settlements. We actually put that right into LGIP, which was a very good decision. That is why we're getting the interest we're getting. Prior to that, I think it was just, a lot of it was just at the local bank. So what we've done then is we've left that money in LGIP alone, and we've been spending down the Franson balance. And, Franson is almost down to where we can't go any lower. So we may have to shift money around, but we'll be getting settlements again here pretty soon, so we might not have to do anything. So then looking at a couple different options, that's the final page I gave you of what we could do with the money.
This is the one.
Thank you.
So this first option is basically leaving things as they are. Our requirement from Franson is to have a $2 million minimum balance in there. So keeping that where it is, with our new contract, we're getting a lot better return from Franson than we were previously. Risk, I'd like to keep some money in there beyond. This strategy is not including proceeds from the debt issue for the construction either. I just looked at what will be normal ongoing balances. The WISC, I'd like to keep some in there because they do a lot of our projections for that issue and all of that, so the rate's not a lot less than the other two, so I think we should leave a little bit there. The first one is basically just keeping things as they are and then having the remainder in LGIP, which, you know, this would mean even dumping more in if we wanted to. And at this point, not doing a CD. As I analyze this, the rates on the liquid money market funds are still creeping up a little bit. The CD rates are a little behind. Doesn't make a lot of sense at this point to put money into the CDs. When they start leveling out or even dropping, then that's when we would want to look at putting some money in the CDs to
How
Get a-
far, how far out would we make a CD?
you can do anywhere from typically 3 months, 6 months to a year, up to 3 years, even if you want.
Is the 3-year higher than 3.75?
No,
No,
it kind of peaks at 2, and then the uncertainty of the market dips.
I mean, the forward curve, I guess, is kind of suggesting that the near term is overbought.
Mhm,
I mean, it could change, like you said,
mhm.
standard and track.
We're in a really short climbing period right now, like a year ago, rates were less than 1%, like way less than 1%. So I can see where the CD market isn't going to match what the current rates are because just of the risk, it could fall as easily as it went up. It won't because the Feds keep raising the rate, so they're usually tied to that. The T-bond keeps increasing.
And this is something we would check each month. I mean, so if you had to make a move intra-month, you would have to wait to the month, or on a monthly basis, we would review this.
That would depend on the committee's desire. If you want to give us freedom to make moves within a month, we can do that. Otherwise, we can bring them along with.
I guess it would depend how fast it's moving, right?
Yeah,
Probably
I
not
mean,
moving that fast.
we're both keeping an eye on this. Check rates pretty consistently.
I'm in the energy market, it moves super fast, so I gotta adjust my thinking.
Exactly. Ours won't move quite that fast. And especially with the meeting second Thursday, we probably could wait and it would be fine. And for a while, if you guys wanted to do that, that would be perfectly appropriate. And as we get comfortable, if you wanted to turn it over, maybe when it's getting a little more volatile.
I mean, I don't think it's our job to guess the market, but at the same, so I would rely on you and Andy. Personally, I like having some fixed security there. Would like it at 4 better than 3.75, at 3.75 is better than 3.5, you know. So I guess I would trust you guys. If you don't think, if you think it's too early to lock in, then we certainly can wait. If you don't have an opinion on that, then I'd lean more towards, well, I like the secure factor of, again, that's just me personally.
Yeah, I definitely get that. So option 3 would be something to look at.
Right, that's what I'm referring to, right?
Yeah. And we don't need to do this. The one thing I threw out in both option 2 and 3 would be adding American Depository Management Company just to further diversify our liquid funds. The rates are virtually identical. Over the 3 years, LG, IP and ADM are really neck and neck. I did get an update on ADM there at 4.21 for January. So that's what I'm saying. The rates are still higher a little bit.
We can, we're better off to wait. Keep us abreast.
So So are you asking for action today? On which option you should go with?
If you would like to give action, that would be fine. I was asked to provide the information and there's strategies, so if you want to direct me, or if you want to just. I think what we're doing is totally up to you.
Which option are you more favorable of and which is more responsible for our taxpayers?
That's for us to decide what's responsible.
Yeah,
Well, but he's the finance guy.
I'm newer here. I would lean towards 2 or 3. I think a little further diversification would be good. And definitely locking in some CDs wouldn't be a horrible idea. And these are from France and I can shop around and see if I can get a better CD rate. So
I would just say, 3 gives us a more mixture of a portfolio. It kind of like, it gets more diversified as you go down.
Yep.
Option 3 gives you some long-term stability. To me, and you're not taking it all and throwing it in there. You have a mixed portfolio. Take some of we're trading a known for an unknown, which I think is responsible for taxpayers.
Correct.
I would make the motion that we would go with option 3, based upon, I think it is a more mixture portfolio. It's more diversified and it has some stability into it, where the other ones are riding the market. That's just my feeling.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Mr. Rickheimer and second by Ms. Hessel to take option 3.
And then what I'll do is I'll keep an eye on things and we can up the amount of CDs too.
I was gonna ask that, maybe we can have
As,
more bullets in the chamber
Yep.
down the road. Yeah.
as the tide changes a little, we'll increase that.
Chairman, in discussion, does that also then, Mr. Ringheimer, give Danny and Mike ability to make changes in between meetings or?
That's probably a separate discussion, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
You good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
I mean,
fine.
on that, I don't want to dilute the motion, but in that point, I mean, again, the volatility is not crazy, right?
No.
I mean, so I think I don't want to worry with my details, but in my business, it's like customers say, look, I need you to watch this, and if you move, because it's moving so fast. But if we check on this monthly,
Yeah.
we might, unless you want that responsibility intra-month, I mean, that's a whole different discussion, but
For a few months, I'd be perfectly fine bringing them back here and have a committee make a decision.
Good, thank you.
Like you said, it's not volatile enough where we need to make.
like where tomorrow is changes,
Yeah.
Significantly.
Question, would you consider, what are your thoughts on, I appreciate CDs, but I kind of lean with Mike where you're getting a higher return. Not much, but it is higher than what you are with CDs. Instead of taking X amount, you look at a CD and do a ladder option. Where you do X amount at this time and you do X amount just to watch it, whether because you're locking in with that CD.
Well, we should step CDs a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyhow. But. I wouldn't be opposed to doing 3 million up front because the rate difference.
That's
isn't
kind of
that
stepping
great.
it
Yeah, I think.
a la carte, right?
And maybe we don't do a 12.
I mean, the bigger question really is the multi-year. I mean, although it's gonna be much less, that's your stability over time, but we can make the decision a different day.
Yeah, and I'm still fairly new. I don't want to lock up beyond what we need for cash flow.
Right.
Well, absolutely, right.
Any other discussion regarding the motions? Hearing that, all in favor of the motion,
Aye.
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Number 12, financial funds update.
So there is a little chart of the remaining ARPA that's committed.
So when we distribute these out, they come forward and show proof they've spent that money.
And most of the ones outside of the county have been related to broadband. You know, and Andy's checking on those to make sure the project's done with satisfaction. So there's about $50,000 that's uncommitted at this point.
We'll need it by 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Andy, go ahead.
I just had a conversation with the town of Draper last week. That project is getting prepared to go to bid.
Well, when they get the project completed, they should let you know.
They will.
All right. Opioid update, anything new there?
One update there, I think we reported last month that we have about 121,000 in our opioid fund within the county books now. There is a new settlement or a group of settlements that's coming forward. This is from the retailers. So that's the Walgreens, Walmarts. Nationally, the settlement was for 20 billion, which the distributors was 26 billion. So we should be receiving roughly about 80% of what we received or are scheduled to receive for the distributor settlement. So that could be, we haven't received the numbers yet, but I would say the neighborhood of another 300,000.
Good.
We've been told to expect the settlement paperwork anytime now. So if it comes in the next couple of days, it'll be, I'll talk to the chair about submitting it to the February meeting. If not, I'll go to the March meeting.
All right. Letter C. LATCF.
That's another one. Money's just sitting there. We haven't done anything yet, haven't made decisions or even recommendations on what to spend it on. 77.
How much is there?
I think it's 377.
That's what we have on Steve so far. We'll receive another payment of equivalent amounts probably towards the start of the next federal fiscal year.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
So Mike, these LATCF funds and the opioid funds that have already come, they're all being invested in this plan you're showing here?
The extra money we got, except
Yeah.
what JD just got done taking in.
I know it. What happens in Mike to the interest that we're gonna make off all this money? Is it just compound and keep growing, or do we put that in the general fund, or what do we do with that?
If it's general fund generated, it goes in the general fund. Anything that's directly grant related or a special fund like these stays there.
And then you talked about using our surplus tax revenue, sales tax revenue, instead of drawing from the reserve fund.
Correct, yeah.
That's a good practice.
Another thing Andy and I talked about is actually having a separate account for sales tax, a separate fund balance. So that maybe in the future, as that builds up, instead of having a fund balance draw, it would be a sales tax fund balance draw.
Okay.
So it would be a little more in tune with the money that we're taking in.
Okay. Number 13, the future agenda items. Yes,
So usually we have EMS. I know that that's been talked about. Usually we have it on the agenda. It wasn't on the agenda today, so just wondering if that could be put back on.
yes. And with all the funds, we like to keep abreast of, so that I'm sure they'll be on the next month's meeting. Okay. Number 14, correspondence reports, conference and meetings. Anybody have anything for that? I have a comment, and the Winter School District is suing all the townships in their district. Not sure what that's about. Is that about tribal land not getting their funds? No, go ahead, Dan.
I believe what it is, this has been going on for several years, is that there's different property ownerships, some under Ojibwa Winter School District. Several names for the Winter School District over the last almost 100 years. There's Ojibwa School District, Joint School, all these different schools that were all combined in the school district. And there's a little bit of title problems with, we're sending tax bills to the Winter School District for a deed that's, say, Joint School District number 5 of Ojibwa. I think what they're trying to do is, and I think even underneath where the Winter School District buildings, there's a gap in ownership from somebody that died in 1935. So they're just trying to consolidate, file this lawsuit in order to consolidate all of the names under the current Winter School District name, just to clean up the title.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else? Meeting adjourned. Thank you for your valuable time.